Take a moment and imagine if the state were to declare it has abolished private property. Then, take a moment to contemplate if Trump's actions more closely align with the idea that each individual has the right to property, or whether they more closely align with the idea that the state has abolished private property. If the state were to claim to abolish private property outright, at least it would be honest. But what we live under is just a bit more subtle than that. The state pretending to recognize property while asserting ultimate ownership over all. Trump and his nationalist cheerleaders essentially operate as if it is the case that the state has, in fact, abolished private property. What is migration regulation if not the state's claim to decide who may step foot on the land? Such a claim is to arrogate to the state the fundamental basis of ownership, the right to exclude others. If the property owner's right to invite, hire, or host whomever they choose can be vetoed by Washington, then private property is little more than a rental agreement with the state as landlord. The tragedy is that most people, Trump and company especially, don't even recognize this contradiction. They shout slogans about freedom and ownership while demanding the very state they claim to distrust stand at the gates and dictate who their neighbors, workers, or tenants can be. But the logic is simple. Either we have private property and migration regulation is illegitimate, along with all other preemptive economic edicts beyond the prevention of force and fraud, or the state has the right to dictate who sets foot anywhere within its jurisdiction, who may work, who may start a business, and who may buy or sell. It can't be both. The MAGA-crats don't realize their demand for border regulation is the same logic beneath nationalization, wage controls, or any other state intervention they pretend to oppose. If the state owns the right to exclude people from the nation's land, then it owns the land itself. We are tenants, not proprietors. Democrats are no better. They'll say the state has no right to decide who you associate with, who can move where, who may work for who, but then turn around and demand the IRS seize your property to fund their favorite welfare program, impose price controls, and all manner of other economic controls. And the minarchists defend minimal taxation, as if a thief taking only part of your wallet's contents is somehow a moral compromise. Their contradictions are just painted in softer colors. Anarchism is simply the consistent application of the principle everyone else hedges on. If individuals own property, then the state has no authority at all, not to regulate trade, not to levy tariffs, not to monopolize healthcare, and not to extract a single dollar for its so-called defense program. Because if the state has the right to tax or to regulate, then you own nothing. Your property is conditional upon obedience to the demands of the state. And that is the through line across all ideologies of statism, left or right, red or blue, Trumpist or some other socialist. They all cling to the same foundational assumption that the state holds ultimate title. Democrats may disguise it under equity, Republicans under national security, but the logic is identical. That is why it is absurd to oppose tariffs while supporting nationalized or otherwise state-manipulated, monopolized healthcare, or to oppose that monopolization of industry while applauding collectivist trade controls. The principle is the same. Once you admit the state has the right to override property, the only limit is procedure, majorities, bureaucracies, or other more honest strongmen. The anarchist answer is simply to deny the validity of their claim and refuse the premise. No state authority, no preemptive control, no false landlord above the rightful owner. Anything else is just arguing about what color your cage is painted, how far apart the bars are, but they're never wide enough for freedom to get through.